Hi, hello, welcome back. Now, if you remember a few videos back, I did a comparison between ball gouge and skew chisel, the sharpness of the edge and how it reacts to the wood using different sharpening wheels. So 60 grit gray wheel, 80 grit white wheel, and two CBN wheels, 80 and 180 grit. And there were a few questions asking if I would do a video on standard scrapers, if there is any difference using those sharpening wheels, and that's what you're going to see in this video. So this is the setup I'll be using. So this is a bowl that I used in that previous video, and this is beech, and it's really tough timber, this particular batch of timber, to actually cut nice and cleanly. However, you can see here that this is really nice surface. This is done with a 16mm ball gouge, asymmetric grind, push cut all the way around. And what I'll do, I'll use a scraper on the bottom and here on the sides, with each different sharpening wheel. So just before I start sharpening with a 60 grit gray wheel to get the burr on the scraper to do the outside finesse here, yes, I'm wearing gloves and I do this on my own safety. So for all the safety police out there, I'm doing this on my own safety, and I do not recommend that you do this. However, I hate when I have, in the very cold day like it's today in my shop, I actually have, the steam coming out of my mouth. So these gloves help me out a lot while turning, and I cut away the fingers so I can still feel what's happening. And these are not really that tough gloves, but nevertheless, I do not recommend that you do this. I like to turn, and again, I'm doing this on my own safety. Now that out of the way, let's go to the grinder. So the first sharpening wheel, like I said, that we're going to compare is this one here. This is 60 grit gray wheel, and I have the scraper. It had an old burr on top, so I just remove it by placing it on a flat surface with a little bit of 400 grit sandpaper, and just do a few rubs, and that just cleans up the edge a little bit on the top. So I just put the burr. This will take a few seconds. Okay, so I feel nice burr all the way around the edge. So we'll now go to the lathe. Now, as you can see, I've divided the surface here on the side of the bowl into 4 pieces, roughly equally. Now, it's not so much apples to apples, because this area here is more towards the bottom, let's say, plane, and this one on the top is more of a end grain exposed. So it's not really apples to apples comparison, but it is what it is. It should give, and if there is any difference, it should point it out. And on the bottom here, I'll just use each grit altogether to rough it down or smooth it out actually, and we'll see if there is any difference there as well. Now, if you have a nice sharp burr on the scraper, you will get shavings, but also what you want is really fine dust, powdery dust, and that tells you that you're actually getting a light touch with the scraper on the surface, but also the surface left behind is quite good. And if you're just getting short, stubby shavings, then it's really dull. So I'll use it flat. I hope you can see, without too much pressure, I'm getting nice powdery dust here. A light touch, there is no pressure here. Basically, I'm trying not to touch the surface with the scraper, so it's that delicate of a touch. And you can see what's built up on the scraper. Just get that in my hand so you can see it a little bit closer, and we can assess the surface. Again, this particular batch of beech is not great for scraping. It's not great for cutting either, but you can see that's pretty good surface. I'm actually quite happy with this, and the burr is actually quite good. And let's improve that by tilting it up on its side, using it as a shear scraper. You can see which part of the edge I'm using, and again I'm getting those same wispy shavings and dust. And again, light pressure. Hope you can see again. This is what I got. And let's see the surface. Yeah, that's a really good surface straight from the scraper. And I'll just go to the bottom here. So again, when using standard scraper like refiner or any other scraper with single bevel, find the middle, or that's the center of your bowl or work that you're doing, and raise the handle so the handle is higher than this cutting edge here, or the tip, and the surface that you're scraping and the top of your tool is less than 90 degrees. And when you position your tool like that, you want to be on that center line or slightly above it. So I just need to raise it ever so slightly, and you'll see now when I position the scraper, like I said, with the handle higher, I'm dead in the center. Again, light pressure. I'm getting shavings, but I'm also getting fine dust underneath. And let's see the surface. Okay, so it's a little bit rougher. I'm not sure how much you will be able to see here. Try to bring more light. So it's a little bit rougher here, but that will sand out really quickly. So what I'll do now is just establish this line here, and I'll sharpen with 80 grit white wheel. So now we are at white wheel here, 80 grit, and I removed the old burr from the gray wheel by also going upside down on a piece of sandpaper 400 and just give it a few rubs. That gives nice fresh top surface. And I'll just find the bevel. I don't have the rest here, so I'll do it freehand. And you have spark over the edge. When you reach the top, and I feel nice fresh burr again. I did get interesting question the other day, actually two questions, the same questions, asking what is the real difference between refiner and scraper. And I just want to say, and to clarify this, refiner is scraper. It's standard scraper with single bevel. Refiner is just a name for sort of a shear scraper type that you can do, actually, shear scraping, that is inspired by my mentor Richard Raffan shear scraper. And a refiner just sort of clarifies the tool that I'm using. Also, when you're selling tools, it's easier to recognize which tool it is by name. But also, what is difference between a refiner and regular scraper, whichever that is, and that is the shape. So with this little notch here, you can do details and shear scrape into a corner, or if you increase this notch here a little bit more, you can shear scrape right into or in the bottom of the bead. But also the shape here, this shape works for me really great. It can change a little bit, and when you receive your refiner, once it will be ready, hopefully in a week or so, I hope, everything should go to plan this time, but I don't want to jinx it, of course. This shape can change a little bit. It's not crucial if it changes an angle a little bit or the curve is slightly different, although at a later stage I might introduce sort of a template that's negative of original shear scraper design here. That way you can gauge if you lose this shape, how to repair it or what to look for. when you try to re-establish the original shape, let's say. But just try to have nice simple curve, shallow curve, and this angle here needs to be less than 90 degrees, so you can go into corner, let's say, of a foot, and also that is slight curve. You don't want to have it straight. That, at least I don't like to have it straight. So now let's go to second field here. Again, I'll use it flat. Now here we have a little bit more speed due to diameter of the ball, but you can see again it's a nice sharp burr, and again a really light touch. I hope you can hear the whistling sound, really nice smooth sound. There is no grabbing, there is no fighting or anything. It's just nice. I'm not sure how to explain this. It's just a really nice whistling sound, quiet whistling sound, and the surface will be the best that it can be on this particular timber here. Now, just for a comparison here, actually I'll compare the surfaces later. So that's using it flat, and that's actually a really good surface. I'm really happy with it, and you will be able to start sanding with 180 grit without any issues here. But let's tilt it up on the side, use it as a shear scraper. So now it's a different kind of a approach to the tool, to the wood, and different angle, and it always or usually will give better surface, getting tiny shavings and dust, and again the surface is really nice. And just establish the lines here, and now I'll go to 80 grit CBN wheel. Now I'll do this with my left hand, and again I don't have the platform. I will order one, get a better stance. Hopefully I'm not blocking the camera. Now with CBN wheel you don't get spark over the edge, but you'll see a difference in color, and also the edge will slightly roll. And that's really nice sharp burr. This is now a really good shot, and I hope you can see at the very tip, that's the burr. So that's that little ridge of white stripe going across the edge of the tool. That's your burr. That's doing all the work for you. Without that, usually the tool won't work on common hardwoods like these. On some of the exotics that are really dense and hard, sometimes the burr will get grabby, whichever burr it is. So honing the burr off usually will get you a good surface. However, I found, at least to the hardwoods that I've been using lately, just a grinder burr is perfect. So let's now try it here. Again, a light touch. And again, this is what you get, especially on a piece of timber that's not that great with scraping. I want to get more of this dust, and this is a cloud of dust actually, so it's not just a few specks of dust, it's pretty much everywhere. And let's see the surface. So yeah, that's really good surface. Now if you have a ton of tear out underneath and you try to use a scraper nice and gently to take care of that tear out, it will maybe take a while, because you really don't want to take on a piece of timber that's not, again, cooperating with you, let's say, you don't want to be aggressive. So I'll use it again as a shear scraper. So really there is not much in sound the tool makes when it contact with the wood, that much of a pressure I'm using. So really delicate touch, getting really nice dust and shavings. But when somebody says that if you're getting like dust, the scraper is not sharp, depends on which kind of or how much of dust you're getting. So again, this is just from this particular bird that I have it on from this session, and again, this is a really nice surface, and the dust in this case is what I'm after. So really nice powder cloud of dust, and I know the burr is nice and sharp, and the surface will be the best it can be using the scraper. And now I'll go with 180 grit. So I'll use top of the platform. This is set for the skew, so I'll just leave it as it is. And again, I feel nice burr on top. Okay, so this is now the worst area that you can have on a bowl to use, let's say, a standard scraper, because you have a lot more end grain exposed than side grain. Standard scrapers really like side grain, so the bottom of the bowl, let's say, or plate or platter or something like that. But end grain, they usually are pulled in. But if you're using scrapers correctly, and if you don't have a really aggressive burr like with the pulled burr with the burnisher, like I've explained in many of my other videos, if you get that pulled burr really high or really strong, it can make a tool really grabby, and if you position it wrong, then it can be a really massive catch. So you want to be aware of that. So again, this is the worst area for the scraper, with the end grain exposed, but I'm using light touch. The surface I'm scraping and top of my tool is less than 90 degrees. Again, really light pressure. And let's see the surface. Again, a lot of fine dust and small ribbons of shavings. And let's see the surface. Yeah, that's again really good surface. We'll improve it slightly by shear scraping. I'm just trying to glide over the surface, not putting a lot of pressure, and I'm squeezing hand like Richard taught me. That way you have a lot more control. And don't forget to sharpen your scraper, because sometimes you can sort of forget and you're using a dull scraper, but you'll see it by the sound and the shavings that you're getting. But this is really good surface, and I'll just divide it again. And I'll try to find the best light to show you the surface, to show you the grain is running like this. And this quarter here, where we're going against the grain, so we're actually pulling the fibers out, and the same will happen here as the rotation comes down. So these two areas on the bowl are the worst for cutting tools or scrapers, and you just now have to project this outward. I'm not sure how much you can see this 60 grit and 80 grit. It's like they have a little bit more of a rougher texture. It's not torn grain or anything like that, but it's a rougher texture here. and on these two, on CBN wheels, there's nothing here. It's really nice and clean. And again, we're going here to side grain, which is nice and clean. This is nice with the grain, end grain portion, and here again this area, hope you can see in a shot this area. So this portion is against the grain, and on this side is actually really nice, really nice, without any tear out or anything. Really nice surface all the way around. So what I'll do real quick is just sand it, and there is maybe a slight lump where the line is, just due to how I use the scraper individually in these four areas. So you might see few ridge in where the line is, but we'll see the in between the lines, let's say, how the surface is. And actually, before I do that, I forgot to I only use the gray wheel on the bottom here, so I forgot to do that. So this is 180 grit Burr. So I hope you can see the shavings. That's really good surface. Nice and light. So now I'll quickly sand this with 180 grit. So 180 grit, just touch up a little bit so we can see the surface. I forgot to open the dust port and close the other one. Close the hood a little bit. I forgot to mention that the speed throughout the process was 1400 RPM. So let's see the surface. I forgot to sand the bottom here, and I'll show you that later. So let's go first to the pure side grain. So that's the polished area here. I hope you can see. So this area here, really nice polished surface, just a few seconds with 180 grit. The speed was maybe a little bit too high, that's why a little bit more shine to it, so I would reduce the speed slightly. So now we go to this quadrant here. This is the area where we are reaching the end grain, but with the grain. Hope that makes sense. I'll try to explain this in a separate video, but this area will pretty much cut always cleanly or cleanest as much as side grain here. And now if we follow this here up to here, this is pure side grain going on the tool, let's say around 90 degrees, and that area, depends on the wood, can cut really cleanly. So now if we go to this troubled quadrant, and hopefully in a shot you can see a few ridges here. Again, this one was a little bump, and here a little bump where the line was dividing the sections. But there is a slight, I hope you can see here, discoloration in this area. If I move it here, you might probably won't see it under the light properly, but this area is slightly more hazed, let's say. So what I would do here is go turn the lathe in reverse and just go another few seconds, and that should take care of that as well. So that's again the nature of the timber. This area will always be against the grain, but we are using standard scraper on a piece of timber that is not that great for scraping. This particular, like I said, batch that I have didn't show as best scraping timber, and yet still this is really nice surface with just a few seconds with 180 grit. And here we have another side grain portion, again nicely polished. The speed again was a little bit too high. This area is the end grain that we are cutting or scraping with the grain. That's always cut really nice and clean. That's a really nice surface here. this little spot up to this line is pure end grain, and this is again that troubled area. I hope you can see the line here, here, and here is not that obvious, but this one is a little bit more obvious here, where the pencil line was, dividing the four areas, and that needs a little bit more sanding, but that's really it. So that's not, there is no tear out, that's the important thing. All of this will be taken care of with an extra, let's say 15-20 seconds of sanding. Again, I'll put it in reverse, and actually I can do that real quick. I'll bring the speed down now a little bit. Still 180 grit. Okay, so now let's see the troubled area, what's happening. So I hope you can see most of it is gone. Few minor line here that should taken care of with extra few seconds of sanding. And let's go to the other part, which is this area here. Really nice and clean. A little bit here left from that big discoloration or big line that was here, but overall that's ready to with 180 grit, maybe extra 20 seconds, and continue on with 240 and so on. But let's see here on the bottom. So hope you can see here we have a little bit more of a torn grain here, here, and here. This was again a few seconds, as you saw, with 180 grit. Now I might cut this a little bit, let's say with a gouge, or do something else, or just sand this for maybe extra 30 seconds with 180 grit, and that should be taken care of. And I can show you that real quick. Trying to find a fresh bit of paper. Let's now go to front rotation. Okay, so hope you can see there are still few hints of that areas, but a few more seconds that will be taken care of. But the most troubled area, which is the ball part here, was taken care of really good. So conclusion on this, on what I'm seeing here, and hopefully how much you've been able to see the difference between the 60 grit, 80 grit white wheel and two CBN wheels, 80 and 180 grit. My personal preference is I usually use the grinder burr from 180 grit. Now lately I've been using 80 grit as well, just when I need slightly more aggressive burr, let's say from the grinder, then I'll use 80 grit. When I need slightly more finer burr, then I'll use 180 grit. But whichever I use on those two, there is hardly much in difference in terms of the surface. It's just how much it is aggressive. And as you saw, all four different options turned out to be great on the piece of wood here. And again, the piece of wood that I'm using here is not that good in scraping, like some ash maybe, or oak, maple and stuff like that. Although some of the beech timbers scrapes really beautifully, this this particular batch that I got from some other job that I had to do really doesn't like to be scraped. So as you saw, with a light pressure, and how much actually, maybe in most of my videos you got familiar with a lot of big shavings when I'm using scraper, but where I really want to get a really nice surface, just tweak it a little bit, let's say, or finesse it, When I'm using really light touch, then you just get clouds of fine dust. Now if you have any particular timber that's really dusty, let's say, or really dry, also kiln dried, can be a lot of dust, but when you're using scraper properly sharpened, you'll get those really big clouds of dust. Not some few specks of dust, that means that the tool is not sharp, but when you get a big cloud of dust and shavings that and dust that collects on top of your tool, then you know you have a nice sharp burr. And again, I like to pull my burr with the burnisher right after I use the burr straight from the grinder. And again, if you're just starting out using standard scrapers, using the burr from the grinder is your best option to familiar with the tool. Then later you can start pulling the burr with the burnisher to get a little bit more aggressive burr, but also that burr will give you the best possible surface. But it's not always easy to control, especially if you're just starting out. So that's something to keep in mind. And I hope this little video sort of shown that there is not much difference in all of these 4 grits, all different type of wheels. And if you only have white wheel or gray wheel, it will do the job really nicely as well. The CBN wheels are just an upgrade and not necessary, but it's nice to have them. And 180 grit burr is a really nice one. It's not that aggressive, but it does leave the surface really good as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you like this kind of video. Let me know in the comments, of course. And thank you again, and see you in the next video.